Hi, welcome to Brew Report. I'm Lawrence, and each week I take you on a fresh adventure through the world of beer at brewreport.co.uk. This week we're treating ourselves to a beer from Siren. That's a name you may have come across before. They are, of course, the brewers who won the Champion Beer of Britain competition not too long ago with their Broken Dream Breakfast Stout. We've got a different stout from them today. This is Midnight Stack. It is more like a shopping list than a beer if you read the description. It is not just any beer, this is a Nitro Maple Pancake Milk Stout. So let's break some of these descriptions, some of these adjectives down. First thing to note with this Nitro Maple Pancake Milk Stout, if that's enough words for you, is the maple. This is an unashamedly maple-forward beer. It's mentioned in the name, it's heavily referenced in the description, it's all over the ingredients list, because this beer contains not only maple syrup, but also it's mixed with maple wood chips and maple bourbon barrel wood chips as well, to give it what we're hoping will be a very strong maple-forward flavour. The second thing to note is that this is a nitro stout. This is going to be a soft, creamy, thick beer with a thick, unctuous mouthfeel through all of that nitrogen, pressurised nitrogen going through it. The instructions on the label tell us to pour this beer fast and hard, so we'll be doing exactly that. And the third thing to note before we crack it open is that this beer is 4.2% ABV. Now that's not a weak beer, but it's certainly not a strong beer. And certainly for a milk stout, for this kind of cakey, desserty flavour stout that we're expecting here, it's a little bit weaker than I would normally expect. And I'm interested to see exactly how that plays out in terms of the depth of flavour that it can command and the mouthfeel. So let's start, as we always do, with the can, with the appearance of the can itself. We're starting with a beer that's labelled very garishly. That bright yellow and purple colour scheme certainly attracts the attention in a way that's kind of aggressive. It's not drawing me in necessarily in the way that some of the previous beers we reviewed have done, but it certainly caught my attention. And so I'm looking forward to seeing exactly what is inside this beer. It's at this point that we realise that I had no idea how I'm actually supposed to pour a nitro stout, but it does say pour fast and hard. And there we have that cascading effect. Kind of, maybe. So we don't have a great deal of that cascade effect that's been promised to us, but I'm going to give Siren the benefit of the doubt and assume that it's down to me pouring it badly rather than anything else. What we have now that it's settled at least is a classic nitro stout appearance. We've got a very thick, creamy, caramel coloured head, a dark, fairly clear body, and certainly, you know, in terms of appearance, it's looking very inviting. So in terms of the aroma, we're picking up a lot of that milky lactose sweetness. It's very clearly a milk stout. It's very clearly quite sweet. I'm also picking up elements of maybe a little bit of milk chocolate, but predominantly I'm getting those sweeter, sugary flavours. I'm not sure if I'd necessarily say it's maple at this point, more than I'm just getting that sort of sugary, caramelly, lactosey sweetness, but we'll see what it's like when it hits the palate. Okay, right. So, at first, it hits the tongue. Midnight Stack, it hits the tongue, and you just get a wave of sweetness. You just get a wave of lactose, which is very much what you come to expect in any milk stout. And at that point, it leaves you thinking, oh, this is a bit ordinary. It's just a standard lactose-heavy, sweet milk stout. It's only then, once that initial round of sweetness clears, then you start picking up some of that more spicy, woody aroma, that woody note that's coming in there from the maple, whether that's the maple syrup, the bourbon cask, or whether that's the wood chips. Whatever it is in there that's giving it that flavour, it's doing a wonderful job of just rounding it out a little bit once this beer initial sweetness dissipates. So the nitro effect on the mouthfeel is an interesting one, because here it feels very thick. This beer feels very thick, very creamy when you first take a sip, but very quickly that creaminess dissipates, presumably as the nitrogen leaves solution, and you end up with a much thinner beer, with a much thinner, more watery mouthfeel after just a couple of seconds. It's not unpleasant, and it means it's a little bit easier to drink than you might find from a much thicker, higher ABV stout, but it does mean that it's a little bit less satisfying as well after you've drunk it. This might come across as me being a shady bitch, and I promise that's not the intention here. The best part of this beer, the nicest part of drinking this beer, is after you finish drinking it. Now, let me explain. The aroma is pleasant. It's got that sort of milky, sweet, lactose-y flavour to it, which is fine. It's pleasant. It's not remarkable, but it's pleasant. The palate, when this beer first hits the tongue, it's very sweet. It's got that milk chocolate, lactose sweetness again. But again, it's nothing particularly outstanding. Nothing's really setting this beer out as being particularly exceptional when it first hits the tongue. It's only as the beer warms in the mouth and afterwards the finish that you really get that crescendo of maple woody spice and maple syrup sweetness and all of those delicious mapley flavours that are really what makes this beer interesting, what makes it special. And it's only really that point where it comes to a crescendo after you've swallowed it and after you've moved on and sort of forgotten about it for a couple of seconds that you really appreciate the full power, the full flavour of this beer. It's an interesting beer. It's not an everyday drinker. This is not a session beer by any stretch of the imagination. The strength would make for a decent session, but the flavour profile and the sweetness, the body that you're getting from it, it's not the sort of thing you'd want to drink several of over the course of the night. This is a special occasion. I'm going to try it for the experience kind of beer. It would be a fantastic beer for the Guinness drinkers. It's got a very similar mouthfeel. It's maybe a touch thinner than proper draft Guinness, but it's got that kind of sort of aroma, that kind of mouthfeel to it, plus the addition of that really beautiful woody spiciness. That's enough from me. What I want to hear now is, what did you think? Had you tried this beer? Did you struggle as much as I did, getting the cascade effect when you were trying to pour it out? Are you a fan of Nitro stouts in general, or do you just think they're a bit of a gimmick? Whatever your opinions, let me know in the comments or send me an email. I'll be delighted to hear from you. If you liked this review, then please do check out the other videos and check out brewreport.co.uk, where I post fresh reviews of beer every week at Sunday. And until next week, happy drinking.